Welcome to the MS Gym podcast. I'm your host, Jody Feltham, and it's about to get real as we listen to the victories and struggles of our own MS Gym members. So let's dive in. Hello, MS Gym family. Thanks so much for joining me today for our MS Gym podcast. And today I'm excited to be interviewing one of our MS Gym members, Jenny Angus. And I've so enjoyed getting to know Jenny myself, and I know that you will enjoy this interview and just to learn more about Jenny and the exciting opportunities that she has pursued. And so let's get started. So Jenny, thank you so much for joining me today.
Well, thank you, Jody. I'm absolutely stoked and I'm completely honored that I'm here. Thank you.
So Jenny, will you tell us briefly just about when you were diagnosed with MS?
Yes, it was 7 years ago. I was finally diagnosed, but I was misdiagnosed in 2004 and sent home. So I guess when everything got so much worse that the final diagnosis came through.
Okay. And that seems to be kind of a common thing amongst MS diagnoses, right? That not everyone gets diagnosed right away, and sometimes there's this kind of misdiagnosis. And it's so it can be so hard because if you look at it, those all those years you weren't diagnosed, you couldn't be treated either. So it's can be a very tricky situation. So when you first started having symptoms, what kind of symptoms were you having?
It was pretty obvious, and the first one was in 2000, and I'd been playing softball co-ed with recreationally speaking, but they were pretty intense players, and I would throw the ball, and and I used to have a straight, strong throw, and the ball would fall out of my hand behind my head, and I'd look to like where's the ball? It didn't make it. And then everyone was like, Jen, it's behind you. And I'd look and the ball's behind me. And I had absolutely no sensation whatsoever that the ball had not been thrown, right? It was back there. And then it escalated that, the ball wouldn't, I'd throw another game and the ball would actually still be clutched in my hand when it was supposed to have been let go. Or it would, I'd throw it down. So it was very obviously wrong. I ended up quitting softball that season because I was so embarrassed by what was happening, and we were losing games because of it.
So obviously a very active woman and involved in sports and athletics. When did the kind of the transition happen, like from obviously struggling with sports? When did it happen to interfere with kind of life outside of athletics?
I guess 2003, the start of 2003, that whole year leading up to my diagnosis, I lost about 50% of functionality, not just in my ability to exercise was down by 50%. My steps went down to almost nothing. I was going to bed at 6 o'clock at night. My pain had exploded. I'd been in the ER about 3 times for bowel issues. I had a partial bowel obstruction. And so there was multiple things happening all over my body. And my brain was just like I couldn't retain anything, and everybody was helping me, like walking my dog and bringing me food and helping me at my job. And so yeah, that was it was very noticeable everywhere. I wasn't answering emails, text messages. I couldn't answer the phone. I mean, I was completely falling apart at the core level.
Wow, it sounds like your symptoms escalated pretty quickly, and definitely it was impacted your entire life and just your day-to-day function. What kind of work did you used to do? Because you had mentioned, when you were working.
I had my own business and I worked full time as a rental property manager in my town. And part time, I was a professional artist. I sold my artwork. And once a year, I did contract work for the Whistler Film Festival, which I'm super passionate about that. And I was also a part time seasonal ski instructor on Whistler Blackcomb.
Wow. It sounds like you were involved in many things and you were out in the public a lot, obviously. And And
Yeah,
obviously that would have an impact with your, your decreased mobility and some of the challenges you were facing, no doubt. That made it more and more difficult for you, obviously, to do some of those athletic things like be a ski instructor. But I'm sure because you mentioned some of your cognitive challenges as well, that some of those work responsibilities would have become very, very challenging for you as well.
it was insane. And I had a very, from the time of diagnosis, like I did teach skiing that December 2013, 2014 Christmas, New Year's period. And everybody was safe and I made it through, but it was at the detriment of my own health and body. And then from there, I got the diagnosis, and literally 5 or 6 weeks later, I was in the hospital and in an electric wheelchair. So there was a lot of, the few people that knew about what was happening to me that I shared it with, they were, propping me up and doing things for me so that these responsibilities were followed through on.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad you mentioned that one thing you talked about, obviously, that you were trying to do all these things, but it was much to your own detriment. How you kind of made, not that it was your fault that things got worse, but because you pushed so hard because you wanted to be able to do all those things that your body responded kind of in a negative way. And I know with MS, that tends to be our mentality so often, is that we push and we push our body so far, and then they respond, and then they react. And it can be so discouraging. So many times we can look back and say, well, I used to be able to do this, and now I can't. Or we act in defiance of things, and our body revolts against us. And it can be such a problematic thing. And I know that's not just your story alone. I know for so many of us with MS is that we want to push, we want to do kind of what the average person, what we believe that would be, but our bodies need a different level of care. And I know that I think we've all had to learn what it is to be kind to our bodies and kind to our minds, having MS and having all those challenges. So, so like we said, you were obviously out in the public and doing, your real estate and your ski instructor and doing your artistry, right? You're out in the public. How did that kind of switch for you when kind of your mobility changed and your disability increased? Were you still wanting to be out in the public, or did kind of the mental landscape kind of change for you in that regard?
It was a drastic and overnight change, and I am a really private person, and I did not want the public to know. I was petrified that my clients or my boss at work would find out, and I'd lose my clients, I'd lose my business, and that was my only income. So there was, that was really, driving a lot, but also I was super embarrassed. I needed, I was very handicapped, and I wanted to hide it, and I didn't want to talk about what was wrong with me. And a lot of the reason why I also didn't go out was because I was too ill. Like felt
Mm.
like relapse after relapse, and then the drug treatments just were making me really ill as well. And it was even though I thought, I'd had this drastic decline, but I continued to decline really rapidly even after I'd had this major change. So, yeah, I was horrified, Jody. Like I just completely emotionally splattered. I felt like every sense of myself had been destroyed. And yeah, I didn't even have time to absorb the diagnosis before I was like thrown into disability and pain and drugs and so on, right? And having a shower stool come into my place and people telling me you got to move out and sell your place and all these things were coming at me. It was to say it was overwhelming is really an understatement. It was pretty much donkey balls.
It definitely sounds like that. And again, like you shared the sentiment of so many other people with, whether it's MS or a chronic illness, when especially when it comes up so suddenly, like so many of the things that we place our worth and our identity in, obviously your artistry and being social and all these things, they become our identity. And then suddenly when MS happens, when these symptoms happen and it feels like these things are taken away, we can struggle so much with who we are as a person. And, what is my identity now that, I can't do these things anymore, or that I struggle so much with these things. And I think often we also go through this mental kind of dialogue that suddenly, because we can't do these things, that we're not worthy of so many things. And I think that's such a slippery slope that we can go down. And I think it's a very common one, uh, that we see obviously in the MS gym, but in our own lives as well, that we struggle to not only, deal with life, with the challenges of with MS, but we try to figure out who we are in the world now, because the things that we had believed about what we were contributing have suddenly changed. And that's not to say that obviously we still have great worth and we are still worthy of love and acceptance, but it's kind of having to learn all over again, uh, where we fit in, and how we can be, productive members of society, how we can give back. And I know it looks different, but it does not mean that the world can't learn a million different things from us. And seeing us fight through our struggles every day, I think we have so much to share with the world. So, so I know with your journey, you shared about that time where you kind of pulled away from everyone, that you kind of went under kind of isolation because you were embarrassed, obviously, by some of the limitations that you had. And I have no doubt, though, that the people that were surrounding you, they love you unconditionally, and they love you not for what you can do, but just for who you are as a person. And I know that can be hard for us to grasp sometimes. Um, but I know that something shifted in your brain a while ago, and I'd love for you to share about that, because I know that from going to kind of a private person, you really put yourself out there, and you did something really inspiring. Not only did you put yourself out there, but you also became an advocate for disability and accessibility and handicap. And I'd love for you to share with all of our listeners today just how that journey took place, and what exactly that opportunity was.
Going public is definitely new for me, like taking a really big stand publicly, that is new. My part of myself, though, what isn't new is wanting to do something about when I see something wrong. So that was kind of a behind the scenes quietly. I write letters, form letters are provided to me. I send them off to politicians, and in my volunteer work in before MS, like I was working on things that I'd see that were wrong, that needed help and needed to be righted. And so I guess my own experiences that I'd had in my town and in life, that since being diagnosed and being, permanently in a mobility device, is a stigma and discrimination. And not to say how many people aren't incredibly over the top, amazing, wonderful, that stands like that's huge. But there are this line, and there's systemic ableism that has impacted me quite a lot, and I've had to fight for access to just simple buildings. And I mean, something happened in September that was pivotal for me, and I went, that's enough. I've had enough negativity. This is wrong. I don't want anybody. Um, People need to stop thinking this way, and I need to do something more about trying to change it. And so, when I'm, as a person who is at home alone all the time, I'm buying all my clothing online, and everywhere I look at all the marketing platforms, no, there's disability is not represented there. And there's more diversity, different sizes, shapes, colors, cultures. And yeah, so it was a Saturday night, and I was in bed. It was about 7 o'clock, and I got an email from my favorite yoga attire company, and they had a sale on. And I thought, and there I saw pictures of people that were diverse, and I thought, this company that I really believed in for many reasons. And so I emailed their media or their communications person, and I just said, I'm really fed up of people gawking and staring at me as a young person in a wheelchair, and random people coming up to me asking me, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with me? Right. And not seeing disabled people online with clothing attire in marketing platforms, or maybe just even in the media, and or not enough of it. And so I thought, I'm going to email them and just see, like, maybe they would be up for this and including disability in their marketing platform. So I just wrote from the heart, and I sent it off. And within an hour and 15 minutes, the owner emailed me back, and she was so excited. She's like, "Oh my gosh, we totally want to do this. We totally want to get you involved, and no, we wouldn't allow you to do this for free. We would pay you just like everybody else, and I'll get somebody else on my team to contact you later." And then that's how it all happened. And the later that week, I got a phone call from one of their top people, a lady, and she and I discussed what they could possibly do on how they could incorporate disability into their showcasing their clothing. And I said, well, do you want to see some photos? I mean, I've done some action sort of model photo shoots before. Like, do you want to see that? She's like, nope, it doesn't matter, because beauty comes in all different shapes, sizes, colors, races, everything diverse, and abilities, right? So, and I just thought, oh my gosh, this is exactly the right thing. These people were awesome. So that's happened.
Wow, Jenny, that sounds like such a great opportunity. And I would love to know more about, this organization, about this company that is so welcoming of all abilities and is fully inclusive. Can you tell me more about them?
Yes, I'd love to. The owner's name is Juliana Charlton, and it's actually two companies that she owns. So one is called No Me No You Designs, and the other is My Inner Fire. And they're located just in a city just south of Vancouver, British Columbia. They manufacture in Vancouver as well. So, and they take recycled, like, post-consumer plastics that is put into a material that then they can use for their leggings. So essentially 8 bottles of plastic bottles go into every pair of leggings. And then they just add some spandex to make it more comfortable. So it's a sustainable product line. And then they also take like beautifully and talented artists, and they pay them for their artwork to be printed on the fabric. And so they showcase all these different artists, and there's a little bit of information about each one and the story behind them. So there's meaning behind it. But more so, the company name No Me No You is a fusion of Juliana's mother's name, which is Naomi, and the phrase "No Me No You, we are all one in the universe" is the basis of their company. And that just really hits home, as to why these people are important to me, and why the company means so much to me. And on top of it all, the product is so gorgeous, super high quality, and very comfortable.
What more could you ask for? And I'm so excited, obviously, for you having the opportunity, but I'm excited for this podcast too, that we can also, post some links to see some of your work that you do with them, and also the company and their background too. So I hope that it will be mutually beneficial, because you know what, we all need to support companies that promote diversity. And because, of course, this is the MS Gym podcast, I do want to learn a bit more about how you heard about the MS gym and what kind of hooked you into Trevor and his MS gym world.
I guess it was quite a while ago. It was March of 2018, and it's my quest of never-ending search of trying to find something better, something to help myself, something to improve, and to find other people who might who were like me, that the disability had forced you out of all athletics and everything, and found a way back to life. So I did a search. I'm like, maybe there's a Facebook group. So I just went MS, and then the MS gym came up, and so I joined the group, and I listened to Trevor's talk. You can do 30 steps, you can do 300, and then I was like, you are who I want to hear from. That hooked me. Then I started to do some of the free exercises and realized that he had everything of all the physiotherapists that I'd seen in my past in one person. And I'm a seasoned patient of physiotherapists. And in Whistler, we have top shelf physiotherapists that work on athletes and world class athletes. So they are super talented. And then Trevor just had everything all in one, like the ability to, to break down that walking chain and figure out how to put it together systematically in videos that were easy to understand, and the exercises that all made complete sense to me. So I was in a month and I bought into the membership. Like it was a no-brainer for me. And I was so glad, like there was other people out there who were trying so hard to get better too. Like I could just, I almost felt like crying, wow, look at everybody and look at how they're struggling and how they're facing their futures and getting through the day. And I was so happy to find the gym.
That's wonderful. And it just keeps after like 3.5 years now of Trevor's free group and then the membership. Like it just keeps getting better, and Trevor keeps doing more and more training. And so, like you said, that you had in Whistler, you had like the top shelf like physiotherapist, like top line training. And with Trevor, he keeps doing more and more like a neurology based training, and it's wonderful that he's passing it on to us, right? Like that we're his crew, we're his tribe, right, to pass this information on to. So it's awesome. And I know that you are one of those people that like to geek out with Trevor as well, as many of us gymmers do. And and there's something for everyone. And there's also Trevor's cheeky sense of humor too, which many people get a real hoot out of as well.
And the BGB was so when I was doing the photo shoot, I had, almost everything was entirely with me sitting, resting, right? But there was a couple times, and I said to them, I need, I want to stand up to try to showcase the clothing better. And so I had my walker that was, the rolls that moves, wheelchair walker. So made it into a walker, and I stood and I was like, hey, BGB, BGB, hold your stance, BGB, smile, hold you, and I was like, so these words were rolling around in my head. And so I finished the shoot and I sent one of the photographs off to one of my friends. And it was like, I was doing Trevor's BGB, like through the whole thing, standing up, right? Like, because I don't really use a walker to walk with, right? I basically sit on it for the most part. So it was like, it was, I mean, he's embedded in my core now of the things that he's taught. And even if I can't get to a full video in a day, there are certain key exercises that I need to do every day and to keep like a basic level of strength and core stability.
Awesome. And it's true what you said. Like we all say that we have a little Trevor in our head saying, BGB, butts, guts, blades all the time. Like whenever we're doing so, and even as you're saying this, I'm like, I need to be sitting up straighter because I'm not doing good BGB. So it's funny how, he gets in our head. And obviously part of the awesome part about the membership too is about, you mentioned about the community, about, the MOC, about how we have so many members from all over the world that we get each other. We understand what it's like to struggle and to have victories and to have setbacks. and to just to know, to have people that know what it's like to live with a chronic illness, and that, not every day is, not everything that happens is linear, but it kind of goes in cycles. And just because we can do something one day, it doesn't mean that we can do it tomorrow. And just because we couldn't do something yesterday, it doesn't mean that we can't do it today. So it's so important to have, a group of people that understand us, even if, you know, when we talk about diversity, it kind of makes me think that the MS gym is so diverse because we are all different. And, in the MS gym, there's people of all mobility types and challenges, and certainly all over the world. I can't even think, at least 50 different countries are represented there. So I think that's an awesome thing too. So Jenny, I wanted to ask you before we sign off, is there anything that you would say to someone who is either newly diagnosed or kind of going through a transition themselves, where they're struggling in regards to finding this new identity, when some of the things that uh, were part of kind of who they portrayed themselves as, that it's not quite the same anymore? Do you have any advice and how to work that kind of the mental mind piece of moving from isolation to at least putting yourself out there?
Yeah, it's a journey that's individual to each person and their experience with how ill they are and how disabled they are and how much it's affected their life. So it's very, very, very tough. And you, you really just have to find a way to connect with yourself and find value in who you are. Just love what you are today, because it's such wasted energy thinking about all the negative things that you're not. And it's a waste of energy trying to push past something that your body is unwilling to do anymore. And I mean, that's only, you can only, as much support as you can have from other people is amazing, but really it's up to each person to find that strength and that love in their own heart for themselves, and find that new voice, whatever it may be. And I appreciate everyone who is having a hard time getting through that and accepting going out in public. And having to move into a wheelchair is can be horrifying experience for some people, maybe not everybody. It certainly was for me. And yeah, it takes a long time getting used to feeling vulnerable and kind of weak, but that has to pass, and it will pass. And I think when you get well enough to be able to, because there's so much illness that's involved with disease, right? And the medications that you take for it. So, you have to kind of get through that. And then once you're well enough to get a place to stability, just find, if you're a passionate person like I've been, find something that you're passionate about and just go in that direction. Put yourself in that environment so that you can thrive with that passion. So maybe completely something that you never even imagined. And for me, it ended up being this: I want to see disability normalized in the marketplace. Like, I want to see more equality, more access, and less ableist attitudes, and honoring disabled people as consumers. And so it's definitely been a long time for me to get there, but it's an unmistakable, I guess, truth that I have found.
Hmm. What a beautiful answer, and especially for me putting you on the spot, because that was definitely not one of the questions that we talked about going over, but you answered that amazingly. And I know that that will resonate in the hearts of so many people that are listening, because like we talked about it before, we all go through this. And, again, whether it's MS or whether it's another chronic illness, we all have to work through that mental piece of, who we once thought, we were, and finding our new place. So I think that you have so much valuable insight there in your last statement. So I appreciate you so much, and I have loved getting to know you more over the last few months as we've been planning to do this podcast. And, I can't wait to see you up on, the billboards advertising for disability. And so I thank you again, Jenny, for being with me today. I wish you all the best.
Thank you, Jody. Thank you. I'm so honored, as I said, to be here and to share my thoughts and stories with you. And thank you to everybody who's listening and all the people that have inspired me to come to this place that I am now. And I wish you well. And it has been my pleasure getting to know you too. Thank you.
Do you want to give a voice to your own story or learn more about the MS Gym? You can check us out at themsgym.com.